Okay, on today's show, we have the director of headhunting for the sponsor of the Remote Native Show, Hire Headhunter. And Susan has been working in coaching for many years before coming into the practice and leading our career coaching. What she's going to talk today is about what she's seeing, because when you call into Hire Headhunter, you're going to be talking to her or coaches that she is training and leading. And today we want to explore what is happening, because the practice is not entirely all remote. We do in-person search, but 75% of our requests easily is remote work and more money. And one of the things we have been impressing, and Susan will talk about this on the clients who come to us, is that usually means a complete career change in industry, profession, or both. And so that's a whole new level of what we are doing for the clients. And I would like Susan to talk a little about this, but first we're going to get to know her a little bit, and I find out about her journey and how she came into career coaching and, where this is all coming from in her past. So
I'll start at the very, very beginning.
Okay.
And try not to take up too much time. So I grew up in Southeast Detroit. It's a very blue collar area. I watched my father work very, very hard his whole life. Worked very long hours, sacrificed his physical health to provide for us. And, he had a career that provided for us, but was very, very difficult for him. And, because he worked such long hours, my mother, had full responsibility for the caregiving and the household duties. And she worked very hard as well. I went to public school. It was definitely never assumed and not really talked about that I would attend college or have what most people consider a successful career. But I always knew that that's what I wanted, and I was going to do whatever it took for me to get there. So I did eventually get to college. I started off at a community college, working my way through it. We went up to finish my bachelor's degree, and then got into my initial career, changed careers a few times. Started career coaching, got my graduate's degree in work psychology, industrial and organizational psychology, and eventually came to work for Hire Headhunter.
Yeah, and we love having you here. And
I love being here.
I know, and the client reviews.
It's seriously the best job I've ever had. My dream.
and if you look at the Google reviews, I mean, Susan is like, you have become their best friend, and really.
Amazing. It's been an amazing.
It is. And, let's talk about a little bit about the degree thing, because initially, when we talked, one of the challenges, we do sometimes have certain clients that we take without a bachelor's degree, but how important do you feel like that has turned out to be in the success of moving clients, especially into remote native work?
Yeah, not having a degree has been a big challenge. If I had any advice to give those who have not finished their degree or started their degree, just do it. Just get it. It's going to really increase your chances for success, increase your chances of having the career that you want. And something we've also seen, even professionals who do start off and have a relatively successful career, up to a certain point, that degree or lack of degree does become a big challenge and will hurt you eventually.
And especially on the remote native side, right? Because what is being hired for remotely, what can be done remotely other than, lower paying type of customer service roles? Not to say that those are bad, so they can be good and they can be decent paying, but a lot of times when clients come to us, I mean, they're looking to go six figures and higher. Mm-hmm. And, that's where I feel like remote native almost requires it. Sometimes in person, facilities management is one of our favorite moves.
Six figures or higher, you're going to need a degree.
You're going to need a degree.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's when people come to us, that's what they're looking for. And so this is we do have ways to manage that, right? And sometimes clients are receptive and sometimes they're not. But it really is a big deal, especially in the remote native space. These are professional level jobs in, we can talk about the types of angles that we're moving in. And we'll see if we get to that when we come back. But there's certain angles, there's certain professions that are hired remote native. And I'm not going to say universally, but they usually require a bachelor's degree. So it is a critical factor.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we now know we've covered that our biggest requests, are by far the bulk of our requests is remote work and more money. Of course, nobody just wants remote work. They want a promotion, they want to grow, and all of that. So that's important.
Yeah,
What would you? Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I would
say to address that. Yeah, definitely remote work. Probably 75% of our clients want remote work, an increase in income. I see escaping a toxic work environment as a big reason for leaving as well, and better work-life balance, which ties into remote.
Right. So that's where this podcast came from, basically. So what have you seen as the biggest challenge in helping the clients navigate what is essentially almost always a career change? They don't want to look at it that way. But once again, the work that's being done remotely is usually different than what they've been doing in person, even if their job went remote during the 2020, season, the big remote shift. But those jobs are being pulled back, and now the clients are coming to us saying, wait, I want to stay remote. I've been remote. Why do I have to go back to the office? And how are you helping them navigate this conversation about why it's different to be remote native?
So the first challenge is sometimes getting the client to understand that transitioning into remote work may, as you said, very well mean a career change. Of course, not, every job can be done remotely, but even the jobs that technically can be done remotely, it doesn't mean that there's a big job market for it or there are a lot of opportunities for you to do that remotely. So part of our task is to figure out how to translate your skills, knowledge, and abilities into remote work. So that could very well mean a new resume, a new narrative, and that comes with its own challenges, right? So I'd say that's the second biggest challenge there, is getting the client comfortable and confident with a career shift, and, comfortable with that new narrative, building confidence to prepare for a new career path. And this is where interview coaching and just coaching in general, interview preparation really, really comes into play. Not only helping prepare for what you're going to be asked, what your responses are going to be, but how to build confidence and manage those doubts and really step into your power, as we say here at Hire Headhunter.
Well, and that is such an important point, because not only does the client want more money now, but they want more money in the future.
Yeah.
And with that, we need enough, I need a demonstration, or we need a demonstration out there in the market that says, yes, there's not just this role, but the director level, the VP level, this whole echelon you can grow with it.
And that's what I love about our campaigns and how you strategize our campaigns. It's not just getting you to that transition or just getting you into your next role, but there's a lot of thought that goes into what your long-term career trajectory is going to look like.
Yes, exactly. Because it's almost never done. I mean, the client is not like, oh yeah, I'll just sit in this job for, the next 20 years. They're looking for that growth. So yeah, right. So talking about the old narrative to new narrative, because, we can make the shift on paper so that they are on track for what is available out there with their skill set. But how do you help them step into the truth, but a truth that is new and different? I had, we had a client one time that he had been recruited out of college from a golf pro. I don't know if I ever told you about this client. And this was one that I worked. And I said, this was 10 years ago. And I'm like, we're not going for a golf pro job. It has nothing to do with anything, but he had an old narrative that he just loved, even though it wasn't going to help him achieve his goals. So how are you helping the client with that?
That can be a challenge. So one thing I say to clients when they first hop on board and when they get that new resume, the biggest pieces of advice I give them is read that resume, learn that resume, and live that resume. This is who you are now. This is your Bible for the rest of your job search. This is the only narrative that exists. And so we practice it a lot. We go through that interview process. And again, that's why it's important to go through the entire process with us. It is a whole process. Go through that coaching. Let me prepare you. Let me help you. Let me anticipate what you're going to be asked, and let me help you with that narrative. But again, your resume is your Bible. It's the only narrative that exists for our job search. Learn
Right.
it.
And sometimes, we're giving it a haircut too, not just in what is presented, but also, there might be some old stuff on there, and just helping them get out of their own way with how they perceive themselves. It's really more of an attachment to how they perceive themselves than anything else, I would say.
That's a big challenge for, I think, anybody.
Yeah. Let's talk about the differences about, because we have the new narrative, and we know one of the challenges that clients have is they want to wing it. How do you help them move past this concept of winging an interview?
Yeah, and some clients do think that they can do that, and but I understand the interview process. It can be a little time consuming. It can be stressful for some people. They don't want to go through it. They're already nervous about the interview. They don't want the added stress of having to go through the interview prep first. But as I said before, it's a whole process. So take advantage of it. The interview prep process is very valuable. You do need to practice that new narrative. And, winging it's just not a great idea. You're very likely to lose out on your first roles. You're likely to miss opportunities. Just take the time, do your prep, and you'll have much better chances for success.
And how do you explain the difference to the client between the phone screen prep, which is usually a recruiter screen, and next stage prep, which I used to call the in-person interview, but we're not really in remote work. There are no in-person interviews almost ever. So, and then also the concept of getting them used to video and the equipment and their sound and their lighting and the backdrop. Like, how are you managing that with the client?
So we do our initial phone screen prep by video, and that is so I can see exactly what the interviewer is seeing. So if they need to make some adjustments in their lighting, we even talk about what clothes to wear, where they position themselves in the room, what room to be in, to look at the camera when they're talking, things like that. Those are things that definitely go into the prep process. The phone screen is typically, as it says, by phone. It's a bit different process than a hiring manager. So I take the clients through, we have a wonderfully crafted phone screen formula. It's pretty simple once you get the hang of it. We go through that formula together. We workshop it together. I'll teach clients how to tweak it for each one of their upcoming interviews, and we practice it together. And then we move on to what we call now the behavioral interview process. So this is a much deeper dive into how you match the job descriptions, how your skills, knowledge, and abilities are relevant to this position, talking about your past positions, taking the interviewer through your career transitions and your job transitions, the reason why you're leaving each position, super important. So it's a much deeper dive into that process. And again, I'll give you some questions to craft responses to. We workshop them together. We go through revisions, and I give you that chance to practice. And again, it's really important to practice on the video. It's important to practice verbally articulating these answers. And then we even go a step further into the mock interview process. Once the client has had a chance to really practice and perfect these answers, we do a recorded mock interview, that's probably the most stressful part for the clients who are already nervous about the interview process. And I learn a lot about the client. Sometimes when you get that, recorder on them, they can freeze up a little bit, but that's good. We need to know that. And then we need to know we need to do a little practice then.
Good. It is about getting comfortable and stepping into the narrative. There's so much that is going into your interview preps, and you're extremely thorough.
If the client has not, interviewed in a while, they've been in the same position for a long time, or maybe they have been job searching but haven't gotten any interviews in a long time. I've had clients who have not interviewed for a job in 20 plus years. They don't know how to do it. They don't have no practice in it. So, of course they're going to be nervous, and of course they need that prep and practice for sure.
That's right. Practice makes perfect. And
they end up pulling it off at the end, though.
And doing the what?
They end up pulling it off at the end.
They do. I mean, and this is another thing, is how much of this is a partnership between you and the client, or the, Hire Headhunter and the client?
Oh, it is absolutely a partnership. And we even talk about this in the initial consultation. We are very invested in your success. It's between the two of us, right? I'm the coach, you're the player. So I'm going to give you all the resources that you need. We're going to set you up with a campaign. We're going to design the resume. We're going to build a pipeline. We're going to process the applications. And I'm going to give you every resource and prep that you need to get there. But I need you to bring it. I need you to show up to your interviews, participate in your interviews. I need you to practice what you learn during the coaching process. And this is a sales and marketing campaign. I need you to have always be closing mentality, and I need you to close on that offer, and then we all win.
That's right. We all want the win. All of us.
We all want the win.
Right. I always say, I'm like, I
we
wish
celebrate even more than our clients do.
I swear we do, and yeah. Oh my God. There's so much to say about those.
We'll text Karen at 9:30 at night.
I know. It's like literally, yeah, we'll get a text to the team. This person got an offer. And I mean, we're all like cheering.
It's wonderful. Yeah.
It's wonderful. Because it's a big shift. We're changing lives. I mean, going remote, more money, putting them on path for long-term remote native work. This is huge. This isn't a little thing. So we're all celebrating. If they just wanted a lateral move, first of all, they probably wouldn't have to come to us, but it's a totally different game changer. So we celebrate like
nice. And I, especially me, because I spend a lot of time with our clients, you become personally involved in your clients and their success. And, you really want this for them. And when they get it, it's a wonderful feeling.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. So what do you feel stops most candidates' progression from getting the offer? Like how are, even with all this support, even driving them the leads in the interviews, all the coaching, what is stopping most of the clients, that they're struggling with and potentially extending their time? And the clients are in the end successful, but
making it harder on themselves. Yeah. Lack of flexibility is sometimes an issue for some clients. So some candidates have a very fixed mindset on what they want, and they'll only interview for positions that exactly match their income goal or exactly match a title goal, et cetera, whatever that may be. So, my advice, don't overquote on salary, be flexible at the beginning of the process. We can negotiate salary on the end, but when you're going through the phone screen process and you're at the beginning of the process, the goal is just to keep the conversation going. We want to get through to that next interview and the next. So be a little flexible on things and have as many conversations as you can. So that's where the win is going to come from. And again, that always be closing mindset. Have as many conversations as you can. Be flexible. You never know what the final offer might look like. And just, keep going till we get there.
Well, and then another thing that we tell the clients is there is an aspect of this, while they're still always going for the close, in gathering market data as far as incomes, as far as what's being sought both now and in the future. Like, there is so much information they're going to gather for their entire career that if they stop the process in the beginning, we're not gathering the data. That's going to extend our time for the end result, because we've seen some pretty miraculous endings. I mean, it's even sometimes beyond our expectations.
We've had some pleasant surprises.
Yes. Yeah.
Those are extra celebrations.
And this is what I was telling one of the other podcast people that I was interviewing, was that if they don't get to the end, we're essentially speed dating. And within a very short period of time, like the person's trying to decide. I said, just imagine sitting at speed dating and deciding right then whether you're going to marry somebody. And that's what
analogy. I love that.
Yeah. And that's what the employer is having to do. Well, the person too, they're marrying the employer, but the employer in the end is going to invest a lot of money, resources, time, and already has in the recruitment process. So has the candidate. I'm not taking anything away, but just imagine, like, in a few hours, I'm having to decide whether I want to marry you. and what the terms and conditions for that marriage are going to be. So it's that constantly giving the employer what they need to choose that person as a candidate. Yeah. So, okay, what other, recommendations do you have for the listeners about building a remote native career? What other things have really helped bring success to the clients?
So for clients who want to hire us to help them find a remote career, my biggest piece of advice, I think, would be to trust the process. So we're designing solutions and driving leads, and it is a whole process. Sometimes clients get discouraged and focused on interviews they're not getting, or focused on rejections. There are plenty of rejections in any, job search. It's just a part of the process. Don't focus on that. Focus on the interviews you are getting, the conversations you are having. Focus on the employers who are actually trying to hire you. Follow every lead. As I said before, have as many conversations as you can, and don't waste opportunities.
I love what you're saying, because sometimes we'll have a client that has 10 or 20 first interviews, and then they're seeing people check their LinkedIn, or they're seeing the rejection emails, and they're more focused on that than the actual. And I'm like, when have you ever had 10 to 20 interviews in a 30 to 60 day period? And I'm like, you're focusing on the wrong thing. And that's that sales and marketing piece, and keeping your eye on the ball, keeping on who wants you versus who doesn't want you.
Yeah, we don't care who doesn't want you.
We don't care. We don't care. And if we really do care, if someone like really got stuck, say, okay, examine that job ad. Let's take a look at what they need, and maybe that's a future step, for instance, or, some skills that you need to get that might not be there. And they just found, we had a huge layoff period that happened in big tech in, 2023. And what we're finding is the job market is great as far as postings, but what we can't see is the supply of labor. And that is changing the game. You're going to be competing, compared to 2020, 2021, 2022, you're competing against someone who may have everything, where before, when there wasn't a huge supply, so we still had good demand as far as the amount of job postings, but we can't see necessarily the supply. The only way, other than what's going, we see in the news, the only way to understand supply is that person getting hits? Are they going to finals, and are they getting beat out in finals? And then, then we have to look, what was that competition? And it could have been someone that really had the whole thing laid out, and we weren't facing that in a hot market. And the job market cycle is about 7 years. So we hit the height in 2022, like mid 2022. And then with these, the layoffs, we're in a low. So now we're going to start climbing up again. And that's something else to think about with the clients too, is when we start getting to age and where they are, like if someone is coming to us at 40, it's way different than if they're coming to us at 55 or, sometimes even 60. But usually in their 50s, we have to start really thinking, okay, we have a time horizon here. Mm-hmm. We have a job market that's going to do certain things. And we have to be thinking about where we are on that path, just like a company thinks about maturity and its own, that cycle. So that's another thing that we're always keeping our eye on is like, there was a prospect recently that was executive that reached out. She's towing the line on 60, and she's like, oh, I'm probably just going to job jump the rest of my career. I'm like, no, no, we can't think like that. There is no job jumping at 60. We have to start really thinking, where can we go that's going to offer you longevity and take you through the ends of your career, or your, as far as direct work life. And then if they move into consulting, start amassing those skills. Mm-hmm. So what else would you like to impart or share with the listeners about the Hire Headhunter process, and anything that they need to think about if they're considering engaging with the practice?
Well, they need to decide whether they want a new career or a new job, and they need to be prepared to go through the entire process with us, be a little flexible, listen to our advice, and just be prepared to go through the entire process.
Well, and I think this is a really good opportunity to talk about some of the differences in traditional recruitment and also executive career management. So, and also outplacement. So with traditional recruiting, those recruiters are being paid by the company to find the unicorn. Okay, they're looking, or the purple squirrel. So they're looking for the direct fit, right? And that's why they're sometimes considered recruiting. It's considered free. It's not free. It's the company's paying for it, but they're not working for the candidate.
So that's an issue that comes up a lot during our consultations. And, that's something that I really try to make understood to our clients. Our services are so much different than your traditional recruiter and headhunter, even though we're called headhunters. What we do is just so much more. We're not just pushing a resume along and trying to solve a problem for an organization and find that perfect person to fit into that role. It's a flip the script relationship. We're looking to find what you need, the role that is perfect for you, and I'm going to put you in there. So we're solving for the client. We're not solving for the organization. And not only that, it's not just about creating leads. It's an entire process, from onboarding to the resume building, to the pipeline building, the application process. The coaching process happens throughout the entire job search process. And not only do we, I meet with a client, find out what their own unique challenges are too. I need to determine that, what their needs are. Some clients need a lot of support, some clients not so much, and then clients need different types of support. So determining what you need, taking you through the interview process and supporting you throughout that entire process. The job search process is not fun. It's fun when you get that offer, but the entire process can, be not fun. It can be stressful. You're going to get some rejections. You're going to have to put some time into it, especially if you have other things going on in your life. I have clients who've been unemployed for a long time, or going through divorce, who have recently become homeless. I mean, there's all sorts of things that are going on in your life that are going to affect your ability to participate in the job search process and, and your interview process. And I try to support our clients with whatever needs they have and meet them where they're at and take them through the whole process until you get that offer.
Now, okay, that's the traditional recruiting side. Let's talk about executive career management, because we've been getting calls, or you've been reporting this to me, that there is a group that's charging about 10 grand and making certain types of promises. And
assuming we're not going to name names here.
We're not going to name names. But they target usually executives, some type of senior leadership, somewhere in 100K range, because who's going to be able to do that? Mm-hmm. And, we have some clients that or prospects, I should say, that are coming from these groups. So what's the conversation there?
Really bad taste in their mouths. I don't know the entire process of the organization or organizations that we're talking about. I just know that they have had bad experiences. And my response to that is look at our results. You're going to see results. Our campaigns are built for success. Our strategist, Karen Gurney, is amazing at what she does. And we're invested in your success too. We work on a retainer commission fee structure. So I'm just as invested in your success as you are. So it is a partnership.
Very much so. Okay. So we have that. We have the traditional executive career management and outplacement. So did you work in outplacement? I never asked if you had worked with some of the larger groups. Okay.
Function.
So I did, and actually I just did an interview for someone who's doing a dissertation on this type of, career management. And she asked me what the difference was. And I'm like, the thing with outplacement is so a company, when they do a layoff, like the big tech has done, they will bring a company in to help with career management. The thing is that first, because the client is not paying for it, they tend to be a little less invested. Sometimes they have a severance package, so there's a little time delay. They feel like they have time, whether that's true or not, is relative. And then
package can be very demotivating.
It can be. And so what I express to people is, we need at least a 90-day ramp up. If you're executive, you want to plan 6 months at least, and to start shifting your mentality away from this, pot of gold that you're sitting on. And, whether that's even a big pot or not, it can be a hit. And also they're going to pay taxes on that. They're not always ready for that. So that's something for them to consider too, is there's going to be a 30% hit on that money, and they need to start being prepared for that. Yeah, that's going to hurt if they don't prepare for it. And so these are all the things for them to consider. But outplacement's a great service. I really love the work I did in outplacement, but outplacement also does not execute entire search. Sometimes they haven't even built out enough. Like there was a few companies when I was working outplacement where they would only build 3 hours of coaching. I mean, 3 hours of coaching is a joke. You can't even build a resume in 3 hours, like especially from the ground up for a new angle. So
not a holistic process.
No, it's not realistic. So it's more just like kind of, counseling and helping the person to start thinking about the future, but it's not going to go anywhere. 3 hours is nothing. So that's just to set,
I have the suspicion, we can do this off the record if you want. I just want to know if you think this is true or not. My suspicion is organizations hire these outplacement companies kind of just so it looks good. We're getting rid of you, but we're offering you this service because we care about you and, we're a great organization, but they're probably not paying top dollar, for these services. And my suspicion is just something to give them. It doesn't necessarily have to be effective, but it's just something a little present to give them.
Yeah, there is that. Right. Yeah, here, to let the door hit you. And then also there's a PR aspect. They do want to avoid unemployment claims. So they do want it to happen, but are they investing enough? I mean, like I said, 3 hours ain't going to do it. Even 10 hours was a popular package. 10 hours, that's nothing. Our onboarding process, between you, me, and the team and everyone that's involved, that's a 40-hour process in the background. I mean, and the client alone is getting 10 hours interaction with you or the other coaches. So it's not what people think. This is a consulting and coaching, career-changing, life-changing thing that we're doing. And that takes time and effort. So, but that doesn't necessarily denigrate outplacement. There is a place for it and it can do very good things, but it's not the same as the level of engagement that is being offered here. Yeah. No. Okay, so I think that covers a lot of what a candidate can expect, and usually they begin with a consult call. I mean, first we have to see. So this is another thing that I would love if the clients could shift. I would rather they come to us and say, "Hey, here's what I've got. What's possible?" versus, "Hey, this is my ask." And this is because sometimes the ask is you can ask for anything, right?
Yeah.
That's not necessarily realistic. So I would love for it to be a little more of, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to become remote native. I want to grow my career. What's possible based on what I have? And what can we do now and in the future? So I would love those consult calls to start shifting a little bit versus, hey, here's my ask. Either you can do it or you can't. And I'm not going to hire you if you can't. Okay, well.
I have been, pretty recently as I've been going through the consult calls, and I think you've noticed from some of my emails and notes, trying to prioritize a client's ask. So, it could be, I want $250K, I want to work remote, I'm not going to relocate, I want a better title, all these things. I try to, okay, well, let's prioritize this. What is your main goal? Is it to work remotely or get more work? And, try to suss that out a little bit so we can, if necessary, narrow it down to something a little more realistic or something in line with the job market that we can actually do.
Yeah, what we can actually execute, what's actually possible.
And I do tell that to clients all the time. We do not want to run failed campaigns. So that is why we do the vetting process and, the research process and looking to make sure we have that alignment between what I'm seeing on your resume, your skills, knowledge, and abilities, what you're telling me you want for your future and the job market. We have to have an alignment between those things. And we have to be confident that we're going to be successful before I will even take you on as a client.
That's exactly right. I mean, first, can you partner with that person? Are they going to listen? Is this going to be a relationship that works? And then second, can we achieve the goal, or what goal can we achieve? And then make sure we're in alignment there, because we only like productive searches. We are ultra honest. We are not, in general, the organization is maybe not the best traditional sales process, because we won't just sign anybody. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
You weren't a great salespeople.
I we're okay. We're going to follow up with you. We're going to try and achieve it. But
no, you are very honest.
I'm really
like
honest.
I said, I know you do a lot of hard work vetting these campaigns. You're very honest about what we can do. And I do not want to run a failed campaign.
It's painful.
It's super sad. And I wouldn't feel right taking someone's money knowing that I couldn't get them to offer. And I think you and I are definitely in alignment on that. There's definitely a ethical component to our business. And I love that.
Yes. Super, super ethical, we've got to sleep at night. Yeah. We need our client to sleep at night, and we need to know we're doing the right thing. I mean, we got into this for a reason. We're delivering a great product and service, but the failed, like when someone wants something crazy. I was just thinking today on my walk that about, 3 years ago, I had an executive who was like, oh, this is what I want. I want, this amount of money. I want to do this. And I'm like, great. What P&L have you managed? So I drove him the calls. He got all the calls, and he was like, oh, well, I haven't done this level of work. I'm like, okay, so, we have to be honest with each other so that we can partner productively. Yeah. And, get the client moving in the right direction. But, people, oh gosh, do you remember the guy that was running the flight school? No. Okay, this was one of your leads. And yes, and now all the leads are your leads, but it's, one time I was more on right now, my high value activity other than driving the operations is running the strategy, like getting the strategy right. And then once I get the campaign going, Susan's guiding this entire process. He was like, oh, I want to make $250K remote. He had been running an aviation school and he was completely there was no real, he was like, I'm just worth it. Like, that's just what I should make. And I'm like,
that's what I want.
Right. And that's another thing. Sometimes we have entrepreneurs that come and they're like, well, this is what I feel like I'm worth now. And I'm like, well, the market may not feel the same way. Are you interested in what the market does feel about your skill set? And then,
and are you willing to change that narrative?
Yes.
Entrepreneurs to the employee. Yeah.
Yes. So entrepreneur to employee is a unique thing. And the other thing that, I always say is, if someone's making even 50 grand in their own business, they're going to figure out how to scale that more than likely. Entrepreneurs don't leave entrepreneurial activities if they're making 150, 200 grand. So when they say that to me or us, in their prospecting, when they fill out for the form, I'm always like, no,
suspect.
Yeah, it's suspect. If you're making a regular income remotely or, entrepreneurially on your own business, you're going to stay with it and figure out how to scale it, not go get a job. So something else is up there.
Yeah.
And we usually have to explore that with them because we have one of those right now. We have an entrepreneur to employee move that's been a challenge. She's like, this is what I'm worth. And the market is not agreeing. And now, he's upset. And I'm like, you said you could do it. So what are we going to do now to shift that? Or what else are we going to look at that will be a match for your skill set? And how does that impact income? Right? Yeah. So, okay. All right. So that is our show for today. And I'm so glad to introduce you to everybody here with the podcast and all of our listeners that are looking to, considering working with Hire Headhunter and considering going remote native and the things that they need to think about.
Thank you, Karen.
Okay. All right. So that is the show for today. And thank you for coming.